Hello everybody, my name is Laurence Le Guen. I'm a PhD student in University of Rennes in France under the direction of Professor Jean-Pierre Montier. Thank you for welcoming me here to present this exhibition about the photographer Ergy Landau. The exhibition is an offshoot of my doctoral thesis on literature for children. Ergy Landau was a founding member of the RAFO photographic agency, but is little known today. She was part of the Hungarian diaspora, which included some of the most significant features of photography in the 20th century. Kertész, Nagy, to name but two. Rubbing shoulders with Brassai, close to Nora Dumas and Hilla, Landau was part of a generation of female artists who made a mark on the history of photography and its relationship with the world of print. Ergy Landau, un livre ouvert, an open book, the title clearly indicates our bias. This exhibition emphasizes a mode of distribution of photograph that is too often minimized by exhibition about photographers, despite the fact that the print media, such as journals, magazines, books, are of course amongst the primary vectors of circulating photograph. Sourced from the personal archives of the photographer, as well as the main publication to which Ergy Landau contributed, this exhibition reveals various facets of our relation with literature, in particular books and print publications. Whether it be illustrating magazine articles, designing children's books, contributing to Portrait Pays or photographing writers, a major proportion of his photographer's work emerges from a dialogue with writer's text. Ergy Landau, an open book, aims to help people rediscover this oeuvre by documenting and displaying this important aspect of her work. This first room is dedicated to becoming Ergy Landau. Ergy Landau was born to a well-off bourgeois family on 19th June 1896 in Budapest. Early on, she was encouraged to develop her artistic and literary interests, and in the end, her preference was for photography. The young woman found a way to assert her independence by adopting an up-and-coming occupation. Ergy Landau did professional training in Vienna, in Franz Setzer's studio, and then in Berlin, in the De Groot studio. Back in Hungary, she opened a studio on Joseph Ferencz in Budapest, mixing with the artistic avant-garde, and met friends with the Molinagi couple. It was this friendship which led her to evolve from a preference from portraiture to the motifs dear to the Nouvelle Vision movement. In 1923, Landau set up in Paris, like many of her compatriots forced into exile by a turbulent political context. She opened a studio at 17th Rue Lauriston, where other Hungarian émigrés, including Brassai and Kertész, worked together. Gradually, Ergy, who changed her name to Ergy, became better known. Her photos were displayed at important photographic exhibitions of the European avant-garde, among them the famous Film und Foto, organized in 1929 in Stuttgart. Taken from a family album, these photographs show members of her family. This photo of a waterfall dates from 1915. Photographed in sfumato, it shows a pictorialism, which was one of the main tendencies in art photography at the time. Wandering in an urban space, a new perspective on what is around us, these are the iconographic motifs beloved of photographers of the Nouvelle Vision movement, which Ergy Landau was to join. Her approach was described in December 1933 by Jacques Gain in this way. It is her knowledge of the creative power of light that allows Ergy Landau to reach the formal richness that characterizes her style. The following articles present Ergy's participation in Parisian exhibitions. On 14th March 1930, she exhibited in the Galerie d'Art Contemporain beside photographers of today, the likes of Man Ray and Molly Nagy. In the 1930s, Paris was the capital of photography, and the Parisian galleries organized a promotion of nouvelle photographie, setting up monographic, collective or thematic exhibitions. However, it was not until 1936 that there was an exhibition in the Pavillon de Marsan in a wing of the Louvre. This 1934 article is called The Exhibition of la Société des Artistes Photographes, Société of Art Photographers, which took place in the Studio Saint-Jacques. In this group were Laurent Le Guen, André Kertész, François Collard, Germaine Krul, Sougès, Tabar, Zuber, and Landau students Nora Dumas and Hila. The society admitted only true artists with impeccable technique. Their aim was to organize exhibition, defend their interest as photographic agencies do not yet exist, and to build up archives. During the Exposition des 10 of 1936 in the Jules Leleu Gallery, organized by the magazine L'Art Vivant, Ergy Landau exhibited her works beside those of Boucher, Brassailles, Dumas, Kertész, Collard, Tabar, Hila, and Zuber. Each photographer sent 10 photographs from one particular genre, for example, landscapes, portraits, still life, nudes, animals, and Ergy Landau chose portraits of children, which was to become one of her favorite genres. This second room shows some of these portraits of children. As well as a photograph of everyday objects, Ergy offers new images of childhood. Her notebooks contain impressive lists of photographs of children from Parisian high society, photographed at Studio Landau or in their homes, showing candid moments in their daily lives, like mealtime or bath time with their family. Rather than gazing in constant wonder at her subjects, the photographer doesn't shy away from capturing their thoughts and tears. In the 1930s, the child was a central figure to adults nostalgic for happy and innocent times, far removed from the brutality of modernity. The image of the child was also a formidable tool for commerce, as advertisers were quick to realize. Indeed, Landau's shots of children circulated in everything from magazine articles to ads to photo albums to technical manuals for learning the craft of photography. Entitled Nativity, this photograph from the magazine Vue of December 1932 illustrated an article about babies. It was reproduced many times, making the cover of the L'Art Vivant magazine in 1933, featuring in Művét in 1936, and in the work Enfants, Children. The image was also presented at the exhibition of the Société des Artistes Photographes, organized in the Studio Saint-Jacques. The newspaper L'Intransigeant referred to it in these terms on 30th July 1934. Madame Ergy Landau has sent a charming image evoking the Nativity. A naked child with golden hair, by the magic of light, shines out like a halo. Here are two works illustrated with photographs from Ergy Landau. In Enfants, the writer Marcel Aimé notes, what surprises me most about all these children's faces is not the joy, anger, or sadness that one or two the other expresses, but underneath these various masks, the essential and permanent traits of personality which prefigure the character of the man. The general public had a growing interest in amateur photography, and publishers tried to meet this demand. This book, Comment photographier les enfants, How to photograph children, presents itself as an evocative selection of child images, providing photographers with ideas for varying their shots. Ergy Landau's photos were also published in 3 books written specially for children, which are the same of his third room. As a photographer of children, it was only natural for Ergy to turn toward publication for children. In 1957, Ergy Landau collaborated with Maurice Genevoix to publish Le Petit Chat, The Little Cat, published by Arithmetic Graphique. 27 photographs were chosen for this book, whose humorous text is a first-person narrative recounting the life of Pussy, a Siamese kitten. It's likely that the French author Maurice Genevoix wrote the text at the request of the publisher based on a selection of Ergy's cat photograph. In the same year, Ergy Landau published Harold Damba le Petit Mongol, Harold Damba the Little Mongol, with Kalman Levy, in collaboration with Yves Bonnieux. The photographs were taken during a trip to China in autumn 1954. Ergy sent her shots to Albert Mermoux, the director of the Guide du Livre, who had just published her Aujourd'hui la Chine. You know, I've just been on a trip to Outer Mongolia and China at the border with Tibet, where I obtained many absolutely unique documents on the life of the nomads and a series on the life of a Mongol child. I don't know this work might interest you, but I wanted you to be the first editor to learn of it, wrote Ergy to Albert. The book tells of the holidays of a young Mongol with his family before going back to school. We see the child's life through sense, training, animals, putting up yurts, local festivals, children's games, and dreams. The photographs are ordered on the page in such a way as to create a narrative flow. The people photographed are given different names, rendering them characters in a piece of fiction. Like many other photographers, Hilaire came to live in Paris, the capital of photography. Born in Austria in 1911, she grew up in Budapest and studied in Belgrade, before going to Paris in the 1930s and working in Landau's studio as an assistant. The two young women became firm friends until the accidental death of Hilaire in 1955. Hilaire soon specialized in animal photography, and her shots of pet and wild animals illustrated many magazine articles and children's books. The myriad adventures and risks taken by this Kipling of photography guaranteed her international notoriety, and she often made the front page, as this article shows. Nudes are the same of the next room. Like Cazebier, Cunningham, Man Ray, Dora Maar, Germaine Krul, and Laurel Guillot, in the 1920s and 30s, Ergy Landau explores the nude genre. Known for her advertising images of objects, Ergy Landau appropriated the aesthetic codes of the pictorial nude by privileging, as had the painters and photographers of the 19th and early 20th century, the female body in diverse poses and postures. Ripped for new moral freedom, the interwar period brought a new regard to the body, as well as to the ways it was depicted through the camera. Now immobilized in a bucolic landscape, now placed in a studio before the lens, the body is presented from different angles. Wide angles, close-up, shadow play, and distortion were explored by the photographs of La Nouvelle Vision, a movement that Ergy Landau exposed on several levels. Landau's nudes are often part of a photographic approach within a broader group project, be it for an exhibition or the publication of a thematic album. However, there are also a number of nudes captured in a more personal way, emphasizing the beauty of the female body by aestheticizing it amidst natural or abstract decors in interior or exterior settings. When we choose to have a room about portraits of writers, artistic collaboration between artists and writers were common and gave rise to book publication or collective exhibition extending their relationship. Ergy Landau, whilst from a photographic background, was nonetheless in regular contact with writers. Portrait of writer is a photographic genre in its own right, since the famous portrait de Flaubert by Maxime Ducamp and Baudelaire by Nadar and Etienne Carjat. Ergy Landau's archives contain a considerable number of his type of portraits: Arthur Kessler, Charles Vildrac, Luc Durtin, Claude Avine, Ifard, Vercors, Paul Valéry, Thomas Mann, Elsa Triolet, Jean-Paul Sartre were immortalized by her. Only 2 portraits fit the traditional image one might have of a writer. Landau freeze-frames the moment where the writer puts metonymic pen to paper, and for another shot shows the writer deeply engrossed in reading. This is how Claude Avine and Paul Valéry are represented. The other writers take natural, sometimes relaxed poses. In April-May 1961, Ergy Landau presented 8 writers' portraits at the Salon International du Portrait Photographique, at the National Library of France, Bibliothèque Nationale de France, including that of Paul Valéry. Although several of her shorts are difficult to date, the writer's portraits Landau has left us reveal the evolution of her photographic practice, from the classic portrait of the mid-1920s to the more natural representations of authors after the war. I will stop for a moment to speak about a negative. Ergy Landau's collection contains only the negative of Valéry's portrait on a glass plate. Did any prints of this illustrious poet circulate in 1920s literary circles? Without documentary evidence, we cannot know. However, this image seems to be a portrait of a writer adhering to accepted representational codes as the poet sits at his bureau writing. This room displays Ergy Landau's Portrait de Pays. Like many photographers, Ergy Landau was well-traveled and naturally shot the places she was exploring, either near Paris or far China. Ergy thus contributed to the representation of places through a photograph, which were first published in magazines and journals such as Művét or Vue, one of the benchmark publications in this area. At the start of the glorious 30s period, civil aviation was developing and contributed to mass tourism and the discovery of faraway places. In this context, airlines like Air France produced luxury magazines which gave opportunities to photographers as well as writers. For example, in March 1953, photograph by Ergy Landau illustrated an article by Maurice Genevoix entitled L'homme et son paysage, Man and His Landscape. Such photographs also found a home in more ambitious publications. As a minor genre, the portrait pays inspired many photographers to the point that in the interwar period, they were seen as authors in their own right. Ergy contributed to 2 such volumes, as a photographer of all the images in Aujourd'hui la Chine, published by La Ville du Livre, and author of 5 shots used in La France à livre ouvert, France an Open Book, which brought together work from different photographers. From her first trip to China in 1954, Ergy brought back photographs which appeared in several of her books. At first, Ergy intended them for publication in Life and wrote to Charles Radeau, head of the Rafo agency, for help in making this happen. These efforts bore no fruit, and so Ergy turned to Albert Mermoux, head of the Bibliothèque, which had in the post-war period been specializing in works in this type, which brought together a photographer and a writer. In Aujourd'hui la Chine, Ergy made without a doubt a most significant contribution to literary history, and in broader terms a photo book. On the title page, she appears as the author of the book above Gascard's name. In this work, her images unequivocally dominate. Here, it appears that the writer Pierre Gascard had sought to create a text which interacts with Ergy's photograph, so that the volume is in fact a conversation. Okay. Finally, this last room explains the origins of the RAFO agency. To conclude, I will conclude now. Ergy Landau is the image of the woman photographer of the 1930s, free, independent, and involved in the struggle of photographers for their art and their status as artists to be recognized. She followed all the photographic movement through the 20th century, from pictorialism to humanist photography, by way of the Nouvelle Vision. She took part in every major photographic exhibition from the 1930s to the 1950s. She worked in every photographic genre, from portraits to publicity shots, from illustrating literary works to photo reportage. This exhibition, accessible on the website Littérature Mode d'Emploi, aims to bring Ergy Landau out from her undeserved obscurity. We would like to warmly thank all the people and the institutions whose generosity has made this homage possible. Thank you very much.